Them boys, the cult of Duolingo, they're after me. We knew it would start. We knew it would start at some point. What is she saying? There is absolutely no way you are trying to tell me that you learned Chinese or Japanese or Spanish or only doing Duolingo. What are you saying? Now, you can see our reply to her. We are open for business for you to come on and do a live show 24/7. Because if you think I am not getting up in the middle of the night in order to watch or listen to you speak to me in whatever language, when you only use Duolingo, I will, guys, we're going to start this reward for $5. $5 if we can find someone who only uses Duolingo and comes out on the other end fluent. We're offering $5. We will up the reward later on. Come on. Stop it. What are we here to talk about though, for real? We're here to talk about structure. We're here to talk about what exactly you need to do if you are trying to organize your limited time in trying to learn a language, because it's definitely not that, all right? We have our own program. Our own program takes you through exactly what you need to do from day 1 to day 30, giving you these tactics in order for you to put together a program for yourself that will work based on how you think and how you learn. Why is that such an insane thought? It's not. It's just that's what will work, all right? And so what do we do? What do we focus on? We've already told you, and we won't go into details here because we've done that in other videos, that the first 7 days is geared to get you to stop doing the crap that is holding you back. These stupid apps, paying too much attention to grammar, trying to memorize things, trying to talk too much right at the very, very, very beginning. All of these things that we just have to stop doing because they're holding you back, especially if you are a beginner. If you're an intermediate stage, it's still holding you back for sure. You can be going way, way, way faster, especially the more proficient you are at the language if you avoid these things. So that happens in your first 7 days. Great. How do we structure these things? Well, you have a limited amount of time. You have an hour, okay? You got an hour a day. That's what you committed to. Now, it's no secret that the more you put in, the more you get out. But if you put in crap, you're going to get out crap, all right? So that's why we need to make sure that what we're doing is going to give us some sort of a return. And in those first 20, 30 minutes, you need to activate all of your senses. Now, if you've seen an interview, a podcast that we did with Eleanor Dickey, and I can't remember all of her titles, she broke down the fact that the more senses you can engage while learning, it's obvious that that stuff will stick. Now, you're not going to get all of that in the app, right? Translating from a target language into your mother tongue, right? Where no images, it's just these words. Like, you guys, it is so fantastically obvious how shitty that app is. And whatever, I don't know if this channel will ever be anything else other than bashing this, but I mean, at $4 billion and 500 million users, we got to do something. At a certain point, somebody's got to do something. And we're going to mention that there's a 500 million people not learning a language. That seems like someone should say something. Like, what? And so you have this. In your first 30 minutes, you need to be focusing on activating all those senses. And you can do that through watching something generally. We don't want to activate our subtitles. We don't want to get those going right now. We're going to separate our reading time to a different time, especially at the beginning, because we want your brain to try and make those connections when it sees someone saying la manzana, okay? And holding an apple and knowing that this thing is here. You don't need to know how it's spelled. You want to recognize first, because understanding is what comes first, all right? And if you understand the ethos of our company and what it is that we say, seek to understand and seek to be understood. That's it. You are trying to communicate. The goal of language is for you to express yourself and also for you to understand. It's communication, period. It didn't say anything about being perfect. If I slur my words, you're still going to be able to understand me. You want to communicate, period. So in those first 20 to 30 minutes, your goal here is to try and understand everything that's going on in a way that gets it vivid for you. It needs to be vivid. It needs to live in your head, which is why stories work so well. Make sure that the stuff that you're looking at is ready and good for your level, all right? It has to be ready-made, packaged for your level. You have to be and do a very good job of identifying whether or not this is too much or not. We have guidelines already in there. They're different depending on the thing that you're using, but if you're not getting anything, if you're only getting 40%, if you're needing to go every single second to try and look up, even with the context you're not getting, it's too much. It's too fast, all right? The subject matter is too complicated. We don't want that, and you don't want that at the beginning. You definitely don't want that at that lower intermediate stage either, because you're going to get stuck there trying to do things that are too hard for you, all right? It's got to be at just a little bit above where you need to get, all right? And so in some of the other videos, we've talked about the hierarchy of competence and making sure that you understand where you are in the learning phase. If you're anywhere with this lower intermediate and beginner, or if you haven't studied this language for 5 years, 10 years, or whatever you did in high school, something like that, can treat yourself like a beginner, okay? And that beginner, lower intermediate, even if you know how to say a couple phrases, you got to get your brain and those neurons firing in a way that changes your operating system and gets it to understand that la manzana is la manzana. La manzana isn't an apple. I don't every time I see la manzana and go, oh, okay, it's an apple. You can't have that. That's the goal. Your goal is to shift everything. And so many language learners never, ever, ever, ever get there. The majority of people do not get there. And it's no wonder when you have 500 million people doing an app that will never push them there. So many people have never experienced this. And I can tell you, it is one of the most satisfying things ever. You will get to a point, and the thing is that it's lower than what you think. You don't have to put in as much effort as you think you do in order to reach a point with which you can kind of start to float away from the shore. You little bit, you be about there, you can get your toes aren't touching the ground anymore. All right? You have not experienced that most likely if you are in this video. Now, I've done that several times, several different languages. It is the greatest thing ever. That's what I'm addicted to, all right? And which is why, and I keep saying this, but we've got to do this fake polyglot video. I've got to do that video. I'm telling you guys, I forget his name. I will find it, I promise you, because I kind of treat this community like my little therapy room, because nobody sees these videos right now. But at some point, I'll have to care about what I say. Right now. I'm just giving everything away. I'm just like, whatever. But the reason you have fake polyglots is because what they do is simply memorize a few things, a few keywords, stuff like this. But then when the conversation starts to float to a little bit more of something, they should be able to say, what is it? What did you say? I didn't catch this word. I didn't understand that phrase, right? Because if I'm talking to you about rocket science, you don't have to know about this specific thing going on. You will say to me, I don't know what that is. Can you explain what it is? Because you speak the language. And if that person is good at what they do, they will tell you, and that's it, right? Those fake polyglots, they don't have any idea. They can't bridge that gap, right? So they're kind of cheating like that. It's pretty interesting. I don't do that because it's not satisfying. It's not what I'm addicted to doing. I want to learn and I want to be able to chill and talk with you, all right? And that's the goal, right? That's where I think everybody should be focusing their stuff. But all right, I'm digressing a little bit. Now, once you have those first 20 to 30 minutes and you've done that, the point is that you now need to use that as an anchor. You use that as an anchor for you for the rest of the 30 minutes that you have. You take those next 15 minutes and you want to be expressing yourself about the stuff that you just saw. You're not going to do very well at this, especially if it's at the very beginning. I mean, you literally will do awful. You might remember the person's name, you might remember that they kicked the ball, and you might be able to say at the end, Tommy came and said, good game, right? That is perfectly fine because you are going to convey, and as you rewatch this, because you need to spend at least 3 to 4 days doing the same thing with the same content, and that is somehow a really weird idea for most people because they want to move on to the next thing, and of course Duolingo wants you to move on to the next and move on to the next. No, not at the lower intermediate, not at the beginner stage, and when you're at these upper levels, you get the ability to take not just a 15-minute or 20-minute video, but you need to take something that's an hour, right? And you need to see that an hour, right? So the amount of energy that you have to put in at the later stages is more. What you put in at the beginning, you will have to put in some energy and you have to put in some stuff, but we can get you going pretty fast, all right? If you focus on the right things to where you're floating and you're able to ask, what is that? What is your name? I didn't hear you. I don't understand. You're talking too quick. You should be able to get there and start learning on your own. So with the rest of the time that you have, you're trying to convey that stuff. Now you can do that first by speaking. If you have someone else who's there, could ask you any little questions or say, did you remember this part or you remember that part? Ah, okay, I remember. And you start talking a bit more about the apple and all this stuff. That's great. If you don't, you're talking to yourself, you're creating that story. That's fine. Just you get it out. You just try to convey it. You can record yourself. You can watch yourself. You can do all this stuff. It's pretty cool to record yourself because you can see how you go from caveman to like, I can actually kind of tell you what just happened in my own words, which is all you're really trying to do, which is, by the way, not really something that we practice in school in a proper way, right? Because you're filling out this stupid grammar. Now, the next thing that you want to try, and I know this is hard for most people because right when I get to this part, here's where the friction starts. When you ask people to write what it is that they can convey and remember from that, Depending on the language that you're learning, right? If you're learning Chinese and you're learning Russian, you may not have the ability to do that. Okay, Chinese has pinyin, so they have a Latin script. Russian has a way to write in Latin, but for both, well, for Russian, I would recommend that you simply just learn the alphabet. For Chinese, yeah, that's a whole separate thing. You need to write. You need to write because we need to make things concrete. When you write things down, you can't just scribble. You have to convey an idea. It has to be concrete, right, and coherent. The next thing, clearly, we've finished your hour, so you might have to make a decision, like, can I spend a little bit more time? Because if you can, you want to read something. Specifically, you want to read something that has everything that you just kind of watched, but told in a different manner. I don't want you to read a transcript. I don't think reading transcripts actually make sense. I think they make sense in order for you to get an understanding of that, but I don't think you further your learning as fast as you can by just reading a transcript. It'd be better if somebody jumbled up all those words, created a completely new story, and then said, okay, read this. It contains a lot of the same information, but it's jumbled up in a different way, all right? And you know that that's going to stretch your brain, and that's what we teach you to do. There you have it. It seems not novel, but hopefully you understand the reasoning behind why I would structure if I only had an hour 15, which is not enough in my opinion. And I agree with Kato Lom, who I talk about all the time, which is 10 hours a week is the minimum, all right? And so an hour a day is only get you 7. And so you need to squeeze out some other time there in order to do it. But the most important thing is that it stays consistent. So, don't listen to me and say, I'm not going to start this journey. If you only have 30 minutes a day, do the 30 minutes a day. Like 1% a day is still a thing that's worth doing. 10 minutes a day, it's fine. Just do the same content over and over again, right? It's such a small commitment. And if you can do that, you will learn and you will definitely be better. And you won't be one of these, whatever this lady, what are you talking about? Christ.